The Death Note itself can be seen as a kind of forbidden fruit. A surprising fact that comes up when we look at Death Note from a Christian perspective is the similarities between light and the devil. This is ironic and most likely unintentional, but they are there if you look for them. You don't need to force them, they're just there. As some of you may know, Satan's original name was Lucifer. This approximately translates to light bringer in Latin. Lucifer is mentioned several times in the Bible, but his story is one that isn't well known. Lucifer started as an angel, similar to how Light was a star student and a good son, but Lucifer wanted to be God, which perfectly aligns with how Light wishes to be a god. As time progresses, we see Kira have more and more influence on the world, similar to how Satan has more influence on the world now than he did some 6,000 years ago or so. You've also probably already noticed the relation between Light's name and Lucifer's name's meaning, and how both individuals fall into sin. But the similarities don't end there. Eventually people begin to worship Kira. This perfectly matches how some people today worship Satan, as crazy as that is. Light is also sometimes depicted with red hair and eyes. Similarly, the devil is also associated with the color red, as red is typically a color of evil. This helps us show that even if you agree with Light's argument that it's more to use the Death Note, he's not necessarily the good guy. One of the most interesting things about Death Note is its symbolism involving the apple. In Death Note, we see the apple a lot. Even in the opening theme song's visual sequence, the apple is shown multiple times. Light even takes a bite of it at one point, representing his fall into sin. The apple is even shown 2 times in the second opening theme song's visual sequence. More on that in a moment. It's clear that the apple represents the Death Note itself, and not just the forbidden fruit. Early on in the series, we see Ryuk become addicted to apples and he starts eating them quite often. This is just like how Aoi eventually starts using the Death Note more and more during his reign as Kira. However, Ryuk's apple addiction slowly disappears and pretty much never shows up again. Mostly except for the second opening theme song's visual sequence, which shows Ryuk chasing an apple at one point and later dancing with the apple in his hand. This could represent Light losing his sanity as he becomes more addicted to killing kernels, and or how Light loses the Death Note temporarily before getting it back. But the apple is not the only thing that represents the forbidden fruit. The Death Note itself can be seen as a kind of forbidden fruit. Light is a normal human being, not a god and not the embodiment of justice, but once he kills one criminal, he tries to become just that. The biblical parallel to this would be Eve biting the forbidden fruit to be like God. Another one of the most interesting things about Death Note is pre-Kira Light. We don't know a ton about Light's personality from before he becomes Kira, but we do have a good idea of it. In episodes 16 through 24, we see a Light who doesn't have a god complex and doesn't see himself as the embodiment of justice. Rather, we see a version of Light that seems to actually care about the people around him, perhaps even more than himself. This isn't very important, but it is interesting when you look at it from a Christian perspective. If you think about it, this is similar to pre-sin Adam. Adam had no sin in him before eating the forbidden fruit. Similarly, Light was a pretty decent guy before picking up the Death Note. He did good in school, he had good familiar relationships, and good friendships. He was even going to join his dad in the police force. But after discovering the Death Note, or forbidden fruit, he changes his mind and decides to become a quote-unquote god. This is similar to how Satan persuaded Eve into eating the forbidden fruit, stating that doing so would make her like God. But once Light begins to kill more and more criminals, he becomes more and more corrupt, eventually even willing to kill his own sister to cover up his tracks. At this point, he had already killed multiple innocent people with the same goal of keeping his secret, which contradicts his spoken words of quote-unquote being justice. And in the end, he acts psychotic as he's caught in his own sin and finally defeated. Light dies a normal human, not a god, not the embodiment of justice, but a criminal against humanity. Light got caught up in his own sin. He built up a self-image in his head that he was God, the embodiment of justice. Light forgot that he was just a normal human.